Today we will have a discussion on artificial chromosomes. Artificial chromosomes are genetically engineered vectors. So we know that a vector is used for transferring a foreign gene into a host cell. The commonly used vectors are plasmids, phages, etc. One of the major problems with these vectors is that they cannot carry larger sizes of foreign genes. And in eukaryotic gene transfers, the eukaryotic genes are longer compared to the prokaryotic genes because they are having coding regions, non-coding regions, etc. It is not easy to clone a eukaryotic gene using an ordinary plasmid vector or a phage vector. So in this case, we can use artificial chromosomes. Artificial chromosomes are genetically engineered vectors which are capable of carrying long DNA inserts, and they can carry these foreign genes into the desired host cells. And these artificial chromosomes, they contain the DNA sequences which will allow them to replicate inside the host cell, which will make them stable inside the host cell, and along with the division of the host cell, the replicated artificial chromosome will be equally partitioned into the daughter cells. So that is the peculiarity of an artificial chromosome. They will behave just like chromosomes inside the host cell. That is, they will replicate inside the host cell like chromosomes. They will be stable inside the host cell, and they are also faithfully partitioned into the daughter cells during cell division. And certain common sequences which we find in artificial chromosomes are sequences that are contained in the centromeres of chromosomes. Then ORI sequences will be there which will initiate replication. There will be cloning sites, which means there will be restriction enzyme cutting sites which can be cut with restriction enzymes, and there we can ligate our foreign DNA. And they also contain fused pairs of telomere sequences. So since telomeres are found as pairs, when we make a cut in between the two telomeres, the circular plasmid or the circular artificial chromosome will become linear. So that you will understand when we discuss about the yeast artificial chromosomes. So this is a general discussion on the different types of artificial chromosomes, and the examples are YACs, BACs, P1 derived artificial chromosomes of PACs and MACs. YACs are yeast artificial chromosomes, BACs are bacterial artificial chromosomes, then MACs are mammalian artificial chromosomes. So here we can have a comparison. When you use an ordinary plasmid as a vector, the carrying capacity is only less than 10 kb. So this is the maximum size of foreign gene which you can insert in a plasmid. Whereas when you are using a bacterial artificial chromosome or a BAC, the carrying capacity can range from 100 kilobases to 300 kilobases. So they are having a higher cloning capacity. That means they can carry larger gene sequences. Then we go to the first developed of all artificial chromosomes, that is the YACs or the yeast artificial chromosomes. So yeast artificial chromosomes, as I mentioned, were the first developed artificial chromosomes. They can be used as shuttle vectors. What do you mean by a shuttle vector? Apart from that, they are having the ability to carry longer sequences of DNA. They can be used as vectors inside bacterial cells as well as yeast cells. Bacterial cell is a prokaryotic cell. Usually E. coli cells are used as host cells, and the yeast cells are eukaryotic cells. So in both these types of host cells, they will work. That is why they are called as shuttle vectors. So they have the ability to replicate inside E. coli cell as well as yeast cell. E. coli cell is a prokaryotic cell, whereas yeast cell is a eukaryotic cell. And they provide the largest insert capacity of any cloning system. That means around 1 megabase long foreign DNA can be inserted in YAC. So that is the most important attractive feature of a YAC, that is, it is having the largest insert capacity. And it was developed in 1987 by Burke and Olsen. I told you they are used as shuttle vectors. That means they are used as vectors in E. coli host cells as well as in yeast cell. When they are in E. coli cell, they are circular in nature. They are of relatively smaller size, approximately 12 kilobases long, when they are used in E. coli cells as vectors, and they are in the circular form as you can see here. So this is the circular form of YAC which is used in an E. coli cell. Whereas when you use it in an yeast cell, what we do is that we will cut this vector so that it will become linearized. It becomes linear. It is in that way that we use YAC inside a yeast cell. So in E. coli cell it will be circular in nature, and in yeast cell it will be linear. So the YAC is actually an initial circular DNA plasmid which can be cut into a linear DNA molecule using restriction enzymes, and then we can insert foreign gene into it with the help of DNA ligase. Now we go to the various sequences present in the YAC vector. There are three essential components of this YAC vector, and these three sequences are derived from yeast genome itself. So we go to each one of them. So first one is a sequence which is called as the CEN. CEN is a sequence which is called as the centromere sequence. So this is the typical yeast centromere. So before that we will go to the structure of a typical yeast chromosome. A typical yeast chromosome, just like any eukaryotic chromosome, will be having a region called as the centromere. It is the centromere which helps in replication, which helps in the segregation of these chromosomes during cell division. So if a genome is to behave like a chromosome, it should have a centromere, and it should be also having the ends which are called as telomeres. So in a YAC, there will be a typical region which is called as the CEN, which behaves as the centromere, which will help in the segregation of this chromosome during cell division, because we are inserting our foreign gene along with this vector, and when this vector replicates, we want our foreign gene also to replicate, and when the host cell divides, the replicated vector will also be distributed into the host cell. So along with that, our DNA, our foreign DNA will also be packaged, or our DNA will also be distributed into the daughter cells. So if this continues, as much as daughter cells we get, there will be that much of foreign genes. So that is why we are using a vector for carrying our foreign gene. So the CEN sequence will allow this vector to behave like a chromosome, because it is characteristic of the centromere region. Then second one is ARS, or autonomously replicating sequence. This is the ORI which will initiate replication of this genome, of this DNA molecule. Without this ARS sequence, replication won't initiate. So that is called as the ARS, which will initiate the replication of this particular DNA when it is in the yeast cell. Whereas here you have another ORI. This is the sequence which will initiate replication of this DNA when it is inside a bacterial cell. So it has got a separate ORI when it is functioning inside a bacterial cell, and it has got another ORI or ARS which when it is functioning inside a yeast cell. That is why I told you it is a shuttle vector. Then it has also got two functional telomeres at the end. So this is the telomere sequence, this is another telomere sequence. So if the vector is cut here with the help of BAM-H1 enzyme, the vector will be cut here and this will become linear. So one T will be here and the other T will be here. So it will behave exactly like a chromosome with T at each ends and CEN at the center. As you can see, this is the centromere and here are the telomeres at the two ends. So if you cut this vector here, one T will go to this side, the other T will go to this side. This will appear linear, CEN in the center. So it will typically behave like a chromosome. So these are the three main sequences which are derived from yeast genome. They are the CEN, the ARS and the telomeres. Then we will go to marker. Any vector should be having a marker which will allow the selection of host cells. We want to see whether the vector has entered into the host cell. We want to see whether the foreign DNA has been incorporated in the vector. So for such selection, we require certain genes which are called as markers. And here the markers are auxotrophic markers. What do you mean by an auxotroph? Auxotroph is a mutant yeast cell which will be having a particular enzyme deficient, and because of the deficiency of that enzyme, it will not be able to synthesize a particular metabolite. So such a mutant yeast cell which doesn't have the ability to self-synthesize a particular molecule is called as an auxotroph. So we will see how an auxotrophic marker works. Before that, we will go to the auxotrophic markers. One is the TRP1 gene, the other is the URA3 gene. So we will go to this vector. So this is the TRP1 gene which can be considered as marker 1, and this is the URA3 gene which can be considered as marker 2. So how do they help in identifying the transformed cells? So you just imagine an experiment where we are using YAC as a vector and we are using a yeast cell as a host cell. But when we use yeast cells as host cell, they should be having certain properties. Say for example, this yeast cell which I use is a mutant. That means it is not able to synthesize tryptophan by its own. So such a host cell I am using for my experiment. So if you want to grow such a host cell in a medium, that medium should contain tryptophan. Otherwise the cell will not grow. So if you try to grow such a cell in a medium which is lacking tryptophan, it will not grow. So such host cells you are using in your experiment. So you are using a host cell in your experiment, and this host cell is not having the ability to synthesize tryptophan, and we are making them grow in a medium which is lacking tryptophan. Now, so that is the host cell you are using which cannot grow in tryptophan lacking medium or tryptophan deficient medium. Now, which is the vector you use in your experiment? It is the YAC vector which is having the TRP1 gene. So, if you allow the vector to enter into the host cell, this is your vector which is having the TRP1 gene, you allow this vector to enter into your mutant host cell. So, when this vector enters into your mutant host cell, the vector is having TRP1. So, the host cell will now get the ability to synthesize tryptophan by its own. So, it will be growing in that medium. So, now you can distinguish between a normal cell which is untransformed and a transformed cell. A cell which is not taken up the vector, which has not taken up the vector or YAC. So, it is a normal host cell which you are using. It has not taken up the YAC. So, it is a non-transformed cell. So, since it is a mutant and since it has not taken up YAC, it will not grow in your medium which is deficient in tryptophan. But you have a host cell which has taken up YAC. If it has taken up YAC, it will be having the TRP1 gene. So, it will now be able to grow in this tryptophan deficient medium because it is having the TRP1 gene which is there in YAC vector. So, it will grow in tryptophan deficient medium because of the presence of this gene by which it will be able to synthesize tryptophan. So, that is why it is called as an auxotrophic marker. That means now you will be able to distinguish between a non-transformed cell and a transformed cell because you just adjust the formulation of your medium. In your medium, you make a medium in such a way that it doesn't contain tryptophan. In such a medium, only cells which contain YAC will grow. So, here this gene allowed you to select a cell containing YAC from a cell which didn't take up YAC. So, that is how this gene acts as a marker. Similar is the action of the URA3 gene also, which is involved in uracil biosynthesis. So, for this what you do? You will select a mutant yeast cell as host cell which lacks the ability to synthesize uracil by its own, and you make a medium which is deficient of this particular metabolite. So, what happens? In the presence of URA3 gene in YAC, the transformed cell will grow in the medium, but the non-transformed cell will not grow. So, that is how you use them as markers. So, the principle of TRP1 as marker is the same as that of URA3 gene. So these two markers, they mediate tryptophan and uracil autotrophy in suitable yeast hosts. So you are using mutant yeast cells as host cells, which either lack the ability to synthesize tryptophan or which either lack the ability to synthesize uracil by their own. In the former case, here this gene will allow you to select the transformed cell, and the latter case, this gene will help you to select the non-transformed and the transformed cells. So that is how these genes allow you to screen the transformed cells from the non-transformed cells. So these are the particular sequences, that is CEN, ARS, telomere sequences, the auxotrophic markers, that is TRP1, URA3, etc., which are characteristic of YAC, and these are all derived from the yeast genome. Whereas they have to act as vectors in the E. coli cells also, for which they have a COL-E1 ORI, and they also contain an ampicillin resistance gene, because these markers will not work in an E. coli cell. They are suited to yeast cell. But when you are using this vector for transferring genes into E. coli cells, you have to select other markers. So for that, you have an ampicillin resistance gene. So this is the ampicillin resistance gene, which will act as the marker for screening in E. coli host cells, whereas TRP1 and URA3 are the auxotrophic markers which will help you to screen the transformed and the non-transformed yeast cells. So that is the difference. So now it is equipped with all the sequences which will enable it to act as a vector either in a yeast cell or in a bacterial cell. So such an equipped vector is this YAC. Now, so you can see the YAC vector where you have a marker B. It can be the URA3 gene. You have marker A, which can be the TRP1 gene. Then you have a cutting site for EcoR1. You have a centromere sequence, the ORI, then the ampicillin resistance gene, the telomere sequences, etc. So you just note down, there are many cutting sites for different types of restriction enzymes, but here we are focusing on only two. That is this BAMH1 and EcoR1. So suppose you are treating this YAC vector with BAMH1 enzyme and EcoR1 enzyme. What will happen? So first we will see what happens if it is cut with BAMH1. When cut with BAMH1, this circular vector will become linear with this telomere on one end and this telomere on the other end. So it will become a linear molecule. So that is the first cut which will render the circular vector into a linear vector. Then the second enzyme, that is EcoR1, will cut here. So this will become one fragment and this will become the other fragment. So here you can see this fragment, that is telomere, ampicillin resistance gene, marker B, ORI, centromere sequence. So here you have the same sequence, telomere, ampicillin resistance gene, marker B, ORI, and centromere. Now you have the other piece with marker A and telomere. So you have here the marker A with telomere. So you have cut this vector into two fragments. And now here there is a space. So with the help of, if you use alkaline phosphatase, you can remove the phosphate group from the 5' ends so that they won't rejoin. And now you insert your foreign gene here with the help of DNA ligase. So these are sticky ends because they are created by cutting with EcoR1. So here you can insert your foreign DNA which is also cut with EcoR1. Then you add ligase. So here your foreign DNA will get incorporated. So here, and now it will act like a chromosome which is having a linear structure with our foreign gene inserted in between, and now you can transfer it into a yeast cell. So that is how you will do the cloning steps. So here it is given as a nutshell. That is, the YAC is first digested with BAMH1 and EcoR1, as I showed you, BAMH1, EcoR1. Then the left and right arms will become linear. the end sequences will become telomeres. Here you can see the telomeres have become the end sequences. Then the foreign DNA is also cleaved with EcoR1 so that the same sticky ends are generated, and you ligate the YAC arms and foreign DNA using DNA ligase. So these are the two YAC arms which have sticky ends. You insert the foreign DNA here with the help of ligase, and then they are transferred to yeast host cells. Then how do we select? We have already selected the transformants, that is a host cell which has taken up YAC will only grow in the medium because the medium is lacking tryptophan, and YAC is having TRP1 gene. So in the presence of TRP1 gene in YAC, any cell which has taken up YAC will grow in the medium. A cell which has not taken up YAC will never grow in the medium. So the first step of screening is over. Your transformants are selected. Now the second question, whether all these transformants contain your foreign gene. A host cell which has taken up YAC alone, as well as a host cell which has taken up YAC with the foreign gene, both will grow in the medium because both contain the sequence TRP1. Just look here, that is, this is the TRP1 gene, and this is the place where you are going to insert the foreign gene. Even if the foreign gene is here or not, the TRP1 is intact. A host cell which has taken up YAC without the foreign gene, as well as a host cell which has taken up YAC with foreign gene, both will grow in the medium. That means both are transformed, and now we have to find the recombinants. So for that we go to the red-white selection, color selection. So here we will have another look at YAC, where we go to a gene which is called as the suppressor 4 gene or the SUP4 gene. It is in this region that you are ligating foreign DNA. The foreign DNA is being ligated in the SUP4 region. Now, the host cell which you use is also having one more peculiarity. Apart from that, it is an auxotroph which lacks the ability to synthesize tryptophan. It is having one more mutation. Because of that mutation, it will develop red color. So the host cell which you use is a mutant that will develop red color on growing. So in this experiment, you are using a mutant host cell which is already an auxotroph which is lacking the ability to synthesize tryptophan. This is a mutant in another aspect also. That is, this is a mutant that develops red color on growth. So when you develop that host cell, it usually grows red in color. Whereas we will have a look on the YAC vector, where we will have one gene which is called as the SUP4 gene. The SUP4 gene is a suppressor which will suppress the red coloration of the host cell. So you just consider a transformed host cell which has taken up YAC. A normal host cell will be red in color, but it has taken up YAC which is having SUP4 gene. The SUP4 gene suppresses the coloration of this host cell. So what happens? The host cell will become white or colorless. So the SUP4 gene is able to suppress red coloration of the host cell. Whereas if this YAC is having the foreign gene inserted, it is at this place that the foreign gene gets inserted. The SUP4 is the insertion site of the foreign gene. So what happens? If the foreign gene is inserted, the SUP4 will be inactivated because the foreign gene is inserted in the reading frame of SUP4. So what happens? If a YAC having a foreign gene enters into the host cell, the SUP4 is inactivated. So what happened? This SUP4 cannot suppress red coloration. So that will appear red itself. That means a non-recombinant cell which will contain only YAC without the foreign gene will be having an intact SUP4 gene.
this sub4 will go and inhibit red color. So such a cell will appear white. Whereas if there is a foreign gene inserted here, the sub4 is inactive. So what happens? It cannot inhibit red coloration. So that cell will be red itself in color. So here from this experiment we can understand that if a host cell has taken up this vector alone, it will appear white in color. If a host cell has taken up this vector along with foreign DNA, it will be red in color. This is called as red-white selection. That is, cloning of a foreign DNA fragment into YAC will cause insertional inactivation of the sub4 gene, thereby restoring red color. If the sub4 gene was active, it would suppress red color. But since the foreign gene was inserted, the sub4 became inactive. It could not suppress the red coloration. Therefore, the colonies that contain the foreign DNA fragment are red. So here you can see the red coloration. These are the recombinants in which the sub4 gene is inactivated. So they will retain their red color. And these are the non-recombinants in which the sub4 gene in the YAC is active and they are non-recombinants. This is called as red-white selection using YAC. Now we will go to the advantages. The YACs can exist in circular as well as linear forms. In circular forms, they can be used for cloning in bacterial cells. In linear form, they can be used as vectors in yeast cells, so they are shuttle vectors. Presence of centromeric and telomeric sequences enable their maintenance as yeast chromosomes. They were originally constructed to study the chromosome behavior in mitosis, meiosis, etc. They can contain long stretches of DNA in them like human genes, mouse genome, the genome of Arabidopsis, etc. So they were used for genomic studies. But the problem with YACs is that they are unstable. So now we will move on to the next type of artificial chromosome, which is called as BAC or bacterial artificial chromosome, which was first developed by Mel Simmons and his co-workers in early 1990s, and this is derived from the F plasmid of E. coli. So this is usually used for transforming and cloning in E. coli cells. Usually E. coli cells are used as host cells. It is not a shuttle vector. The size of this vector is 7.5 kb and the size of the foreign DNA it can carry is 150 to 350 kb. So this is also able to carry long DNA sequences with them. And how many copies they will maintain inside the host cell, that depends upon the E. coli F plasmid from which this vector is constructed. So the copy number is maintained by the BAC replication system, which is derived from the E. coli F plasmid. So this will contain ORI, multiple cloning sites in which you can insert the foreign gene. They contain restriction enzymes, a selectable marker, and plasmid genes for replication of BAC. And also these replicated BACs will be segregated into the daughter cells. Just like chromosomes are segregated into daughter cells during cell division. So this will make sure that the daughter cells will get shares of the replicated chromosomes from the parent cells. And these are some of the regions in bacterial artificial chromosome. The ORI, which will allow replication inside the bacteria. There is a PAR sequence which will help in segregation of these BACs equally into daughter cells. So when the cell divides, the replicated BACs will be equally distributed in the daughter cells. The LAC-Z- gene, which will help as a selectable marker, which will help in detection of the foreign DNA, whether it is inserted or not. And the CMR sequence, which allows the selection of the transformed cells. So they are acting as markers, which helps to detect transformants, recombinants, etc. And the procedure for cloning with BAC is same as that with plasmid vectors. That is, you cut them with restriction enzymes, you make a space, you treat them with alkaline phosphatase, you ligate with the foreign DNA, and then you can transform them into host cells. And the advantages are, compared to the YAC, they are highly stable, they are easy to handle, they are used for gene mapping, sequencing, etc. of microbial cells, plant cells, animal cells, etc. And they can be propagated without deletion, rearrangement, etc. as that occurs with YAC. That is a disadvantage of YAC, which shows deletions, rearrangements, etc. Such problems are not met with if we use BAC as a vector, and these BAC vectors have served as a starting point for sequencing of several organisms with large genomes, including human genome, mouse genome, Arabidopsis plant genome, rice genome, etc. So they were highly extensively used in the human genome project. So apart from YACs and BACs, you have MACs or mammalian artificial chromosomes, which can be used as vectors for cloning long eukaryotic genes inside mammalian host cells. So this finishes our discussion on the artificial chromosomes.